Hi, guys. It's time for chapter 6, and hopefully, we're going to get 7 in there too. All right, so this one is called Spy versus Spy, chapter 6. Fortunately, the ground wasn't very far. Let me get some really quick. Wasn't very far away. Van tumbled onto the damp grass. His knees hit the ground, which hurt for a second and would definitely leave a stain on his nicest pants. But he decided not to think about this. He decided not to think about the boys who were probably gaping out of the window behind him either. He sharpened his vision into a straight, bright beam, just like he did when he was searching the sidewalks for lost treasures. He focused that beam on the brown ponytail that was already flying over the brick wall at the very back of the yard. "Hey," Van yelled, "girl from the park!" The girl didn't look back. Van climbed onto a sturdy cement planter and hoisted himself over the brick wall. He landed on both feet in the alley just beyond. He gave the lump in his pocket another pat, making sure the china squirrel was still there. Meanwhile, the real squirrel was bounding down the alleyway ahead of him, its tail brushing the hem of the girl's long coat. "I'm the one who gave you the marble, remember?" Van called, breaking into a run. "I just want to talk to you." The girl didn't slow down. At the end of the alley, she and the squirrel veered off, left. Van raced after them. "Why won't you tell me your name?" Van yelled. "Is it Anna? Is it Ella? Is it Bob?" Maybe if he guessed right, she would finally turn around. "Is it Rumpelstiltskin?" The girl ran on. They tore through blocks of quiet houses and rustling trees. With each block, the buildings got taller, shops and restaurants grew thicker, the sidewalk got busier, and the world got louder. The girl and the squirrel slipped through the crowds like a pair of scissors through tissue paper. Van wasn't as smooth, but he was small enough that no one seemed to notice him either. "Why do I keep seeing you?" Van was beginning to lose his breath. "Are you following me?" At that, the girl finally glanced back. "Am I following you?" Van heard her shout. "Well, not right now," he puffed as he chased her over the crosswalk. "But it can't be a coincidence that this whole huge city, I keep seeing you." The girl glanced back again. Her voice was clear enough that Van caught a few words, even though he was panting and traffic was grumbling, and the wind was whipping the air between them. "Can't see me," she shouted. "Yes, I can," Van shouted back. "You're wearing the same dark green coat as before, and there's a squished French fry on the bottom of your right shoe. And so suddenly that Van couldn't even finish the sentence, the girl disappeared. There was no puff of smoke, no trap door. She just wasn't there anymore. The squirrel wasn't there either. The patch of sidewalk they'd occupied was empty. Van raced to the spot where the two of them had vanished. He looked carefully in all directions. Just behind him was a stone with the bright neon sign Exotic Pets. It flashed as waves of shifting neon light sloshed around it. Tanks of chameleons and anoles and snakes with skin like fancy bathroom tiles filled the huge plate glass window. Farther inside, Van could see rows of bubbling aquariums and gorgeously plumed parrots preening on high perches, and a giant cage of what looked like spiny hamsters. He didn't see the girl or the squirrel anywhere. Two doors down was a bakery. In its window, cakes drizzled with chocolate and topped with berries sat on sheets of paper lace. Delicate French cookies formed pastel pyramids, and cupcakes topped with icing roses glistened in the background. The dizzying smell of warm sugar floated through the bakery's open door. The scent was so distracting. Van almost forgot what he had been looking for. The girl, that was it. Had she gone into the bakery or the pet store? Van took a small step backward, trying to choose bakery or pet store. He bit his lip. Pet store or bakery? And then, for the first time, he looked at the building wedged between them. It was an office, a small, grayish, closed-looking office. Its single window was covered by plastic blinds. A colorless sign reading City Collection Agency hung beside the door. It was the kind of place most people wouldn't even notice. Van almost didn't notice. As if an invisible hand was pushing him closer, Van stumbled toward the office's clingy dingy front door. It swung open when he turned the knob. Inside, the office was dark. Only a whisper of daylight slid through the blinds. As Van's eyes adjusted, he saw that the office was not only dark, but empty. There were no desks, no file cabinets, no furniture at all. He patted the walls, but there didn't seem to be any light switches either. A funny smell, like old paper and spices and a candle smoke, wafted through the air. He ventured across the carpet. At the very back of the room, half hidden by a dividing wall, was another closed gray door. Van reached for the knob, expecting to find a musty little bathroom or maybe an empty storage closet. What he found instead made him gasp. On the other side of the door was a steep stone staircase, a staircase so long that Van couldn't see the bottom. It led straight downward, growing so dark in the middle that it seemed to disappear entirely. But further down, from somewhere deep beneath the dingy office, far below the city streets, there glowed a green gold light. A gust of spice and smoke fluttered the tips of Van's hair. Van inched into the steps. The heavy door thumped shut behind him. Slowly, silently, he crept through the darkness down toward that green gold light. Oh my goodness. I can't wait to see what happens. Chapter 7, Underground. The scent of old paper and smoke grew stronger. The green gold light grew brighter. Holding his breath, Van tiptoed to the bottom of the long staircase, pressed his back against the chilly stone wall, and peered out. He stood at the edge of the massive underground chamber. Pale green stones tiled its floor, its walls, its high arching ceiling. It almost reminded Van of a subway platform, except there were no trains or tracks, and the space was 10 times larger than any subway station he'd ever seen. Rows of tulip-shaped lamps with petals of green and gold glass dangled from ceilings. Flocks of pigeons waddled over the stone floor, along with several rats and streams of scurrying mice. There was no girl and no squirrel to be seen, but Van had the absolutely positive, skin-tingling feeling that they had been there moments before, almost as if he could feel himself stepping into their footprints. Straight ahead, just beyond the green stone banister, Van spotted the head of another staircase. He hurried to the banister and craned out. Below him was a hole, a huge, hollow, whispering chasm. It's dizzyingly deep and impossibly dark. Flights of stairs hugged the walls around it, forming an angular downward spiral. At each landing, where the stairs made a sharp turn before plunging down again, entrances to other underground chambers branched away into the dimness. When he looked straight down, he couldn't see any bottom at all. The girl with the squirrel had to be somewhere down there. A shiver rattled through Van's body. The thought of heading even deeper underground, further from the light and daytime, and everything familiar filled his mind with a low, terrible hum. He clutched the banister. What was he doing here? What was he thinking, wandering down into some giant sewer or station or bomb shelter or whatever it was, chasing a girl who didn't want to talk to him anyway? He should turn around, climb back up the stairs, and run back out into the daylight before anyone spotted him. He should find his way back to Peter's house and what? An imaginary voice from his pocket spoke up. Go back to that awful party like nothing happened? Forget you ever saw that girl and that squirrel? Never learn what this place is actually about? Van slipped a hand into his pocket. His fist closed around the miniature china squirrel. He'd come this far. He could go a little bit further. But before he could change his mind, Van started down the staircase. He clutched the banister with one hand, trying not to think about the bottomless dark on the other side. He held on tight to the little squirrel with the other. The shuffle pat of his feet hung in the chilly air. Van slowed as he reached the first landing. An archway more than twice than his height loomed ahead of him. Above the arch, tiled in the green stones, was with tall black letters, were the words, "The Atlas." Van slipped through the archway. He found himself in a chamber almost as large as the one above. It had the same pale green floor and ceiling, lit by rows of the same petaled glass lamps. Its walls seemed to be coated in layers of tattered, patchy wallpaper. When Van looked closer, he saw that it wasn't wallpaper at all, but maps of all kinds, some full of illustrated trees and houses, some grids of lines, some mysterious swirls. Several people in long, dark coats were gathered at tables in the center of the room. Their heads were bowed. They pointed at things on the huge sheets of paper. None of them were girls with squirrels on their shoulders. But as Van watched, one of them turned and strode straight toward him. Van threw himself backward into the shadows. He pressed his shoulders against the wall, holding his breath. The man in a long black coat swished straight by. He came so close that Van could see the glittering black eyes of the owl on his shoulder, but the man strode through the arch and down the staircase. Once he was sure the man with the owl was out of sight, Van crept back out onto the landing. He looked at the next flight of stairs. At the bottom, disappearing through another archway, he spotted something that looked like a bulky green coat, topped by the puff of a pale gray tail. Van pelted down the staircase after it. The air grew colder. The smoky, spicy scent grew stronger. The darkness coming from below seemed to rise up around him, swirling over his skin as lightly as mist. The next archway gaped ahead of him like a waiting mouth. In the stones above the arch were the words, "The Calendar." Van darted inside. The room he entered was busier than the one above. It was as large as the Atlas, with the same arched ceiling and stone walls, but it was filled with bookshelves now, rows and rows and rows of them. Dark-coated people bustled between the shelves, taking books down and putting them back. To Van it looked more like a library than a calendar, but as he crept between two shelves, he noticed that all the books were the same. Every single one of them was a large, plain volume bound in black leather. They would have been completely identical except for the delicate markings on their spine. Van skimmed the nearest row, May 11th DA, May 11th DAL, May 11th DE. Van was just about to grab one of the books when a pale, puffy flash snagged his eye. He peered through the shelves. The girl with the squirrel was hurrying up the next aisle. Van scurried sideways, keeping her in view. Yes, it was definitely her, with the mossy eyes and the sloppy ponytail. The girl strode toward the far end of the room, where a man sat behind a huge wooden desk. Van scuttled after her, peeping out around the edge of the shelf. The man at the huge desk had long, iron gray hair and delicate features. He spoke. The girl answered. The man began to scribble something in one of the big black books, and Van caught sight of a tiny sleeping bat dangling upside down from the man's right earlobe. The girl said something else. Van thought he heard the words ray or wait or birthday or worthy, and the man said something like very good, and the girl whirled around and darted away. Van turned to follow her, but a line of people in long black coats had begun to fill the room. He ducked and dodged to stay out of sight. By the time he reached the archway, the girl had raced down the next flight of stairs. Van paused on the landing. It was cold and dark already. Deeper down, it would only be worse. Van clenched his hands. What would Super Van do? Super Van would go on. He would streak down those steps and never stop until he learned all there was to learn and given all the help there was to give. Van went on too. The air grew colder and colder. The darkness thickened. pasting itself to his face like mud. Van didn't like the dark because he couldn't hear everything there was to hear. He liked seeing all there was to see, and he often saw things that other people didn't. Usually this balanced things out, but in darkness he felt unsafe and small, like Superman stripped of all his powers. And there were things here in the dark. He could feel them. Small black shapes, birds or bats or something else, flitted and skittered all around him. Once he was sure he felt a wing brush the side of his neck, and a moment later something with a long, thin leg seemed to be crawling over his hair. But when he swatted at it with one hand, there was nothing there. At first, when the sound began, Van thought his imagination was playing another trick on him. But the sound grew larger and louder until he couldn't possibly be only on the inside of his mind. It was a huge, rumbling, horrible sound. It was a roar, a howl. It made the walls shiver. Van couldn't feel the sound thrumming into the soles of his feet. He couldn't tell what was making it, but whatever it was seemed to be a far, far below. His entire body, toes, knees, spine, stomach, all wanted to turn around and bolt back up the staircase, away from that sound in the cold and the dark. But Van held on to the banister. He took deep breaths. He had nearly steadied himself enough to take another step when, ahead of him, there came a blast of silvery light. Van squinted. Another archway stood before him. It was twice as wide and twice as tall as the openings above. And over the arch were the two words that made Van's skin prickle from head to toe: the collection. Van flew down the rest of the steps and through the archway. The blast of silvery light was already dimming because, as Van saw, it came through a pair of massive wooden doors, which were quickly swinging shut, and disappearing between those doors was a silhouette, the silhouette of a girl with a squirrel on her shoulder. Without giving his brain the chance to think twice, Van raced after her, straight through the closing double doors. Okay, so next time it's going to be chapter 8, and we'll move on from there. So hope you guys have a great day. Talk to you soon. Bye. Mwah.